Frustrating, funny, confusing, and idiotic. People that shout, scream, wave their arms and hands around in an attempt to try and do sign language. Rude people that are ignorant or just plain embarrassed. Events that happen nearly every day in some way or another. Dave went deaf at the age of 7, losing all hearing in 1 year overnight and the other over a space of several months. Without his hearing aids, he is completely deaf. When he was 34, he lost all hearing in his left ear and his right was no better. This prompted him to get an implant. He relies on lip reading and sound to follow a conversation, but in some cases he can follow people without lip reading. This is a collection of short stories, funny, frustrating, and plain crazy. Situations and events that were so shocking or hilarious, they had to be shared. Ignorance, deaf awareness, and a sheer panic or confusion from people that often fail to have common sense, or the experience of meeting a deaf person. Reminded every day that he is deaf, it goes over his head and becomes a joke, and in these cases becomes part of the frustrations of being deaf. Hello everyone, and welcome once again to the Heir's Lair. I'm your host, Jonathan Taylor. Today's video is once again a review, this time of The Frustrations of Being Deaf by Dave G.F. Blackwell. Yeah, I'm going back to Dave and his bibliography, or more precisely the parts of his bibliography that are directly about him being deaf. He actually has a pretty extensive bibliography for, especially for someone who doesn't, write full time. And I don't know if any of the other books feature deaf characters or handle the topic in any way. All I can say about these books, both the one I reviewed last week and this one, is that they are both directly about being deaf, but they are so in completely different ways. The first one tells a full story of one particular week in a deaf character's life. This one is a collection of short stories that have occurred all throughout the life of one particular deaf person. I have to admit, this is a review I'm actually redoing because I had a script going for it and one that I've even actually rehearsed, but I didn't film myself saying it because I don't know, I just wasn't feeling it. So I decided, you know what, I'm gonna go off the cuff. So whatever happens, happens. Remember what I said in last week's review that it seems as though that book was mainly about putting a deaf character in certain situations in order for humor to be generated. Well, this is the book in which these situations are more directly presented, and one where you can see that even though that maybe Deaf Like Me wasn't supposed to be a memoir, but all of the things that happened there have indeed happened to Dave himself as well, as presented in a whole bunch of short stories. Most of the short stories that inspired events from Deaf Like Me show up within the first, I'll say, quarter or third of this collection, and the rest of it is mainly brand new situations that you probably wouldn't have considered as being part of a plausible deaf person's experience. As in, it is somewhat surprising and frustrating what people can come up. Aside from that, however, aside from the shock factor, is there also a bit more of an entertainment factor? The answer to that is, I'll say yes. Dave and his experience have very much Dave's experiences have very much led to him becoming an absolute sass master who has no patience for people who actively try and make his life more difficult. And through this process of dealing with people like that, he has grown a very particular sense of humor, one that is very interesting uh, to observe and follow up on, and that really helped carry me through the reading experience. He is a very good storyteller in that sense. It would not surprise me if he is in fact an avid journaler, given how well he is able to um, recount all of his stories. It they're all presented with a lot of with a lot of tact and a lot of and a lot of care. Uh, and it does paint a picture that is not flattering, but also not disingenuous of the kinds of people he meets. As in, you can tell that he has a lot of experience with realistic stupidity, because he has been confronted by it in many many instances, and not just because he is deaf, but also because a lot of the work and activities that he genuinely involves himself with tend to lead to him uh, getting in touch with these kinds of people. While these stories are told in a nonlinear fashion, as in you could have one story from his youth, one story from his present, the next one could be from some point between them. The next one could be from any other point during his time. But most of them tend to be clustered around three specific instances, namely his time as a hotel porter, his current employment, and his vacations and adventures throughout the United States. That being said, these are not the only experiences that he really goes into. There's also a story about his from his childhood, from back when he first became deaf, for example. And yeah, it's quite an interesting book to follow, and it does always have that potential for surprise in the in the situations it describes, and in the ways people handle with them, and also in how his frame of mind changes between stories. It is in this sense, the collection in this sense is quite intriguing in that it pretty much makes you jump around between various points of this person's development and maturity process, and it shows just what and it shows just who he was and who he ended up becoming in a very intimate, very personal, and very engaging manner, which I can't help but say has been very intriguing. However, in and of itself, that is pretty much the main attribute of the book. It's humor and its variety and complexity. Because otherwise, this leaves me somewhat unimpressed. Dave is, I think, the only recurring character, and after a while it gets pretty tiring to read about the same things, or things within the same within the same realm of possibilities going on. None of the stories really stand out to me. Not that I have to sit back and think about them. I can distinctly recall moments, but not stories in and of themselves. So it might be somewhat incorrect to call this a short story collection. It's more like an anecdote collection, or a or in general, just kind of a series of accounts. So it is simultaneously interesting and boring to both read and talk about, which is curious. But overall, I think it does its. Overall, I think it is a very interesting book to. Very interesting. It's still very interesting to. It is perhaps not interesting, perhaps compelling or engaging is a better way of describing what this book is really like, because it does manage in its presentation to elevate a topic that is otherwise quite middling. Overall, I can't even talk anymore. Overall, while I am not particularly impressed with this book, looking back on it, as a reading experience, I think it has a lot. I think there is plenty of variety and plenty of heart and plenty of quite surprising insights that will carry you through and will keep your interest as you move forward throughout the book. My final rating for The Frustrations of Being Deaf is the same as the one for Deaf Like Me, namely a 3 out of 5. And that was my review. Thank you for your attention. If you enjoyed it, then please leave a like and maybe even share this video wherever you think other people will like it as well. If you have anything you'd like to add to any part of what I just said, the comment section awaits your input. And if you want to see when my next video, which might be a review, gets published, then please subscribe. Ideally, also ring the bell or do whatever else YouTube will ask of you in order to keep you notified. My own book, Heir to the Empire: The Next Generation, is available at most major book retailers under a master link in the description down below, right past my social media, which I also suggest you check out, should you feel so inclined. Until next time, I'm Jonathan Taylor, and this has been the Heir's Lair.